At 62, Demi Moore finally said the one thing Hollywood never wanted the world to hear. For decades, five powerful men stood beside her on screen. But behind the cameras, they shattered her confidence, erased her identity, and nearly destroyed her life. Today, for the first time ever, Demi Moore reveals the five actors she secretly hated the most. And trust me, the final name will shake you to your core. This is the truth she waited 40 years to tell. At 62 years old, Demi Moore finally broke a silence she had carried like armor for more than 4 decades. And the very first word she spoke sent shockwaves through Hollywood's spotless halls. I didn't grow old quietly. I was waiting to name them one by one. This wasn't a confession. It was an earthquake. Because Demi Moore was never just another movie star. She was an era, a revolution wrapped in elegance. A woman who shaved her head on camera when Hollywood said women should never be seen without perfection. A woman who became the first actress in history to earn $12 million for a single role. A woman who refused to apologize for existing boldly. She was proof that a woman could be fierce, fragile, powerful, and vulnerable, and still command the screen. But behind the blinding flash of cameras, behind the shimmering gowns, the adoring crowds, and the legendary films, lived a woman who was slowly, quietly, painfully being torn apart by the very same people who once praised her. People who clapped during her premieres but whispered behind closed doors that she was a relic of the past. Producers who admired her beauty on billboards but muttered that she had a body but no soul. Directors who hugged her at award shows but labeled her difficult, emotional, or too old once the lights turned off. For years, Demi carried their insults like invisible bruises. She watched roles disappear, opportunities crumble, and friendships turn into cold, polite nods on red carpets. And today, after decades of swallowing pain, Demi Moore finally revealed the 5 men she swore she would never forgive. 5 men who shaped her life and silently shattered her heart. The first name on Demi Moore's secret list was the one no one on earth ever imagined would be there. Bruce Willis. To Hollywood, they were perfection carved in gold. The dream couple. The pair who seemed untouchable, young, beautiful, unstoppable, and deeply in love. When paparazzi snapped photos of them, the world sighed. When they walked red carpets hand in hand, fans said, "That's what love looks like." But behind the flash of cameras, behind the smiles and matching outfits, behind the carefully crafted family image, Demi Moore was freezing to death in a marriage that looked warm from the outside. They met fast, fell in love harder, married in a whirlwind, and in the blink of an eye, they had 3 daughters and a home the public envied. But while the world believed Demi was living a fairy tale, she was slowly losing the story of her own life. Bruce was rising, an action hero, a box office machine, the face of a new Hollywood era. Studios lined up for him. Directors worshipped him. Fans adored him. And Demi? The brightest star of the 90s dimmed. Not because she lost her shine, but because she dimmed herself so Bruce could glow. She turned down roles, skipped auditions, pulled herself away from dream projects. She wanted to be there for their children, to support Bruce's expanding career, to be the anchor of a growing family. But somewhere along the way, Demi Moore disappeared. She wasn't the highest-paid actress in Hollywood anymore. She wasn't the warrior from G.I. Jane. She wasn't the global sensation from Ghost. She was labeled, simply, Bruce Willis's wife, a title that looked glamorous on paper and felt suffocating in reality. Behind closed doors, Bruce grew distant, wrapped in the whirlwind of fame, travel, and the exhausting life of an international superstar. Nights alone became normal. Phone calls became shorter. Conversations became colder. And then came the whispers, rumors of private gatherings, events Demi wasn't invited to, parties she only heard about after they happened. She tried to ignore the signs, tried to believe marriage was simply going through seasons, tried to hold on to the man she once adored. But the crack in the foundation grew wider with each passing year. When they divorced in 2000, the media celebrated their amicable split. They smiled for cameras, co-parented with Grace, appeared at events together. But that was just the public show. Behind the scenes, Demi's world collapsed in silence. Just months after signing the divorce papers, Demi was hospitalized for emotional exhaustion. She couldn't understand one haunting question swirling endlessly in her mind. Was I married to my husband or a stranger wearing his face? And then the final blow came. Within weeks of their divorce, Bruce went public with a new relationship. The speed of it crushed Demi more than any argument ever had. It confirmed every fear she buried for years. That she had been alone long before the marriage was officially over. The world adored Bruce Willis. Hollywood protected him. Fans cried for him. He was the charming hero, the beloved action star, the man who could do no wrong. And Demi? She swallowed her pain in silence, because speaking about it back then would have made her look bitter, jealous, or dramatic. So she kept quiet, until decades later, when Bruce's illness, aphasia, and dementia became public in 2022. The world mourned for him collectively. Celebrities posted tributes. Fans shared memories. But Demi didn't say a word. Not because she was heartless. Not because she felt victorious. Not because she still hated him. But because she finally understood what her heart had been trying to say for years. I don't hate him for leaving. I hate that he made me believe love alone was enough. Bruce Willis wasn't the villain of her life. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't cruel on purpose. But he was her first heartbreak. The one that taught her love can be magical on screen and devastating in real life. The second name on Demi Moore's list wasn't just a betrayal. It was a wound so deep it nearly killed her, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Ashton Kutcher. He was 15 years younger, the rising star of a new generation. Charming, playful, magnetic. He made Demi laugh at a time when she no longer remembered what laughter felt like. He felt like a second chance, a fresh page after a marriage that froze her from the inside out. Hollywood didn't understand them. People whispered that Demi was desperate, clinging to youth, trying too hard. But she didn't care. In Ashton's eyes, she saw hope. A future. A man who seemed to adore her for who she was, not who she used to be. They walked red carpets hand in hand, defying every headline that mocked their age difference. They smiled, posed, held each other like they were proving a point, not just to the world but to themselves. But behind those flawless photographs, behind the glimmering gowns and picture-perfect smiles, was a woman fighting a silent, brutal war with time. Demi didn't just try to stay in shape. She punished her body. Hours of training until her muscles trembled. Diets so extreme, they made her dizzy on set. Procedures meant to freeze, lift, tighten, anything to slow down the ticking clock she heard every time she looked at Ashton. She wasn't competing with Ashton. She was competing with the 22-year-olds Hollywood compared her to. Because she believed one heartbreaking thing. If she didn't look young, she wouldn't be loved. But time doesn't negotiate, and neither did Ashton. On their 6th wedding anniversary, when most couples celebrate with flowers or dinner, Ashton spent the night with a 22-year-old woman. The story hit the media like a bomb. Photos, interviews, talk show jokes, it was everywhere. Demi had already been shrinking on the inside. This betrayal shattered her completely. Less than 4 months later, she was hospitalized. Her weight dropped to dangerous levels. Her heart was unstable. Her emotions were in free fall. But what truly broke her wasn't the cheating. It wasn't the gossip. It wasn't the humiliation. It was the text message she found on Ashton's phone. "You were younger. You make me feel my age." Those 6 words didn't just hurt. They erased her. Hollywood, cruel as ever, turned her pain into entertainment. They mock her online, called her a cougar, a ghost, a midlife meltdown waiting to happen. They painted her as hysterical, insecure, too old to keep her young husband. Meanwhile, Ashton moved on effortlessly. He rebuilt his image as the lovable, wholesome guy next door, married Mila Kunis, had children, became a family man, a reformed star, a man the media adored. And Demi? She carried the scars alone. She wrote one line that would outlive the scandal. "I didn't hate that he cheated. I hated who I became trying to keep him." Because with Ashton Kutcher, The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was spiritual. She lost her sense of worth. She lost her identity. She lost the woman who once stood toe-to-toe with Hollywood's greatest men and demanded respect. To keep him, she shrank herself, starved herself, silenced herself, and in the process, she lost the one thing she spent her whole career fighting for: dignity. Ashton Kutcher didn't just betray Demi Moore. He erased parts of her she spent years trying to rebuild. The world thought she was devastated by a failed marriage. But the truth was much deeper. She wasn't mourning Ashton. She was mourning the version of herself she sacrificed for him. And that version of Demi was gone forever. The third and fourth names on Demi Moore's list weren't lovers. They weren't husbands. They weren't men who broke her heart romantically. But they broke something just as important: her belief that her heroes respected her. These were the men who stood inches from her face on camera, held her hands during iconic scenes, shared the spotlight, and helped create some of the most unforgettable moments in film history. But off-screen, they treated her like a stranger. Patrick Swayze, the on-screen lover who walked away. The world believed Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore had a rare, magical connection. Ghost wasn't just a film, it was a cultural phenomenon. The pottery scene became one of the most replayed, reimagined, parodied, and adored scenes in cinema. People swore they must have been close. Best friends, maybe even soulmates. But the truth was painful. Behind the camera, they barely spoke. Demi came ready to work, open-hearted and thoughtful, while Patrick kept his emotional distance. He was polite, professional, but a wall stood between them the entire time. When it came time for the worldwide promotional tour, Patrick refused. He told producers, "I don't work well with her. She's too emotional." Too emotional. A phrase Hollywood loved to stick on any woman who dared show humanity. Demi brushed it off, but the comment followed her for years. It echoed in casting rooms, whispered in producer meetings, hinting she was difficult without anyone ever accusing her directly. After the success of Ghost, Demi tried several times to keep in touch. She admired Patrick. She hoped to build a genuine friendship. But he didn't return her calls, didn't answer her letters, didn't even send a polite note back. When Patrick Swayze passed away in 2009, Demi didn't make a grand public statement. No interviews, no emotional posts, no spotlight. She sent flowers, quietly, privately, like someone mourning a connection she wished she had, but never truly got. In her journal, she wrote the line that captured everything. It was a memory the world loved, but a man who never saw me past the script. Patrick Swayze didn't betray her with cruelty. He betrayed her with indifference. And sometimes, indifference cuts the deepest. Tom Cruise, the hero who judged her. If Patrick hurt her quietly, Tom Cruise hurt her with silence sharp enough to feel like a blade. They stood side by side in A Few Good Men, alongside Jack Nicholson, two of Hollywood's most powerful men. Demi was the lone woman among giants, and she walked into that set hoping for camaraderie, respect, maybe even mentorship. Instead, she found distance, walls, cold professionalism that bordered on dismissal. Tom Cruise never ate with her, never laughed with her, never encouraged her. He barely looked her in the eyes unless the camera was rolling. Demi tried to brush it off. Actors could be focused, preparing, staying in character. But when filming wrapped, Tom cut all contact entirely. No messages, no congratulations, no acknowledgement of the bond that forms naturally when actors work closely together. 2 years later, in a casual interview, Tom made a comment that pierced Demi more deeply than any argument could. Some people try too hard to look strong. Demi didn't need a detective to understand who he meant. Her role in the film was powerful, assertive, emotional, traits Hollywood still struggled to accept in female characters. And Tom's words were a reminder that even when she stood strong, men could twist that strength into something negative. When A Few Good Men received major Oscar praise, Demi's name wasn't brought up once. Reporters asked Tom about her performance. His response? "I'm not sure how much of the film's success she contributed to. Not cruel, not loud, just dismissive enough to erase her." With Tom Cruise, Demi didn't lose a friend. She lost the right to stand as an equal among the very men she helped elevate. Patrick Swayze made her feel invisible. Tom Cruise made her feel insignificant. Both reminded her of a brutal Hollywood truth. Sometimes the people standing closest to you are the ones who make you feel the farthest away. The final name on Demi Moore's list didn't come from a broken marriage, a public scandal, or a deeply personal wound. This one hurt differently because it wasn't about love. It was about respect. And losing respect can scar deeper than losing love. Rob Lowe. Years before she became a global icon, before Ghost, before Striptease, before she became the highest-paid actress in Hollywood. It was about Last Night. It was the film that launched Demi Moore from a rising actress into a star with undeniable presence. And standing beside her was Rob Lowe, one of the most charismatic young actors of the 80s. On screen, they created chemistry that felt almost dangerous. It was raw, electric, honest. People praised their performances and believed they shared a real connection. But off-screen, their worlds were miles apart. Demi treated the role with intensity and dedication. She was young, hungry, determined to prove she was more than a pretty face. She studied, trained, rehearsed until exhaustion. She wanted to be taken seriously. Rob, meanwhile, took a looser approach, often focused more on the fan attention, the energy on set, and the glamorous chaos of rising fame. Demi respected him. He was talented, charming, and compelling to watch. But she never expected that years later, their shared film, her breakthrough, will be turned into a weapon against her. In 1988, Rob Lowe became the center of a national scandal when a sex tape surfaced. His career was on the verge of collapse. Hollywood distanced itself. Producers hesitated. Fans turned away. And Rob did what desperate stars often do. He used the nearest lifeline. Demi Moore became the lifeline. In interviews, talk shows, and magazine features, he started casually bringing up their work together. Specifically, the intimate scenes from About Last Night. Scenes Demi poured her soul into. Scenes she filmed with professionalism, artistry, and trust. But Rob framed them differently. He used them as evidence of his wild past, his chemistry with beautiful women, and his legendary romantic reputation. Suddenly, Demi's work, her art, was being dragged into a scandal that wasn't hers. And the worst blow came from a single joke Rob made on national television. Demi puts you in the right mood. It sounded playful. It sounded harmless. But it wasn't, because in one sentence, he reduced her from a serious actress to a prop for male fantasy. He turned her dedication into innuendo, her professionalism into a punchline, her artistry into a sexual accessory. And Demi, who had fought her entire career to be recognized for her acting, not her body, felt years of progress crumble with just a few careless words. In her journal, she wrote, "I didn't shoot love scenes to arouse anyone, but being a woman means you're seen before you're heard." Those words sliced deeper than any gossip headline, because they weren't just about Rob. They were about Hollywood, about the industry that applauded her when she was beautiful and dismissed her when she demanded respect. Rob eventually rebuilt his career. He reinvented himself. He became a symbol of second chances, the bad boy who turned his life around. But Demi? She didn't get the same mercy. Instead, she spent an entire decade fighting the shadow that comment cast on her, trying to break free from a label she never agreed to, trying to reclaim her identity as an actress, not an object. And the sting wasn't that Rob intended to hurt her. It was that he didn't even think about the impact his words would have. Sometimes the cruelest wounds come not from hatred, but from carelessness. Final lines, the truth she waited 40 years to tell. These 5 men did not destroy Demi Moore. They didn't ruin her career. They didn't take away her talent or her legacy. But they did carve pieces out of her. Small pieces, quiet pieces, pieces the world never saw. Pieces she finally gathered at 62, when she realized the truth didn't need to stay buried to keep others comfortable. She isn't looking for revenge. She isn't begging for sympathy. She isn't rewriting history to paint herself as a victim. She simply wants the truth remembered. Because fame fades, beauty fades, Box office records fade. But pain? Pain stays unless someone is brave enough to speak it aloud. And now, after decades of silence, Demi Moore has finally spoken.